One of the Big 12 newcomers thinks they're in the worst situation of anybody in the league. Details coming up here in this video. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I talk college football, college basketball, and conference realignment from a Big 12 slant all week, every week here on this channel. And today what we have is a little bit of rain on the parade of the Houston Cougars by their own head football coach, Dana Holgorsen, the same week that everybody was celebrating the release of the new Big 12 schedule. I've got all the details on that, courtesy of footballscoop.com from Dana Holgersen's press conference. By the way, you can support the channel on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. Should have thrown that in there as well, if you would be so inclined. Here's what we have. Dana Holgorsen created a lot of headlines with this quote. He said, "What we're dealing with right now is going to be dead last in the Big 12. That's a pretty emphatic quote there from Dana Holgorsen. And when he says what we're dealing with right now, he's talking about the whole picture here. Support for the program, money, facilities, everything. Total package here. The article from footballscoop.com, who does a great job covering anything coaching news related, says Tuesday's announcement was the first time life in the Big 12 became real for the four newcomers. For everyone involved with the University of Houston, it was a day of celebration. But for Dana Holgorsen, it was a day of mixed feelings. And here's another quote from Holgerson. He says, "From the University of Houston's perspective, it's awesome to be a part of it, but you look at it and you go, whew, this is going to be pretty challenging. So let's get to work. We've got a lot to do." So while Cougar fans spent Tuesday marveling in the reality of TCU, West Virginia, Texas, and Oklahoma State coming to their home stadium, as well as road trips to Tech, K-State, and Baylor, Holgo was grappling with the fact that his fans expect their Cougars to compete with and beat those schools despite having fewer resources. And it's a fair point for him to bring up. Now, yes, Houston did beat Texas Tech a couple of years ago, but let's look at last year. Decent Houston team. They lost by 18 at home to Kansas. Kansas did whatever they wanted in scoring 48 points in that game. And that was a Kansas team that finished 3-6 in the Big 12. Jayhawks were much improved. That was a good, solid football team. But they finished 3-6 in the league, and they waltzed right into Houston and just punked them. So if you're Dana Holgorsen, that's a point that you hold up and say, like, look, it's going to be this every week. Every week. Are we ready for that? Are we, as an institution, ready to handle that challenge? And that is a fair question, I think, for him to raise. Great comparison. I've got to give a shout out to Football Scoop here. I'm a man that appreciates a great analogy, and they gave a great analogy about what this is. It says, in all, Holgerson had the general aura of a dad of a family that was just gifted a golden retriever puppy. The kids are overjoyed to have a pet to play with. Mom is happy to see the kids so excited, while dad is calculating all the time and energy it'll take to keep the new family member from completely wrecking the house. In the first 10-ish minutes of Wednesday's availability, Holgerson hardly went a breath without hammering the financial and facility gap between Houston and the rest of the new conference. Man, that is so perfect. Like, everybody, deservedly so, is really excited about this, but Dana Holgorsen is the guy that has to actually navigate this schedule. He's the guy, the work will be on his shoulders to actually go out and win games, which is what everybody wants to do ultimately. And if they start losing, he's the one that it'll all come back on. You know, the guy with the dog, like, hey, if our house starts falling apart, it's going to fall back on me. That's a problem in my lap that I will have to deal with. So even though you guys are excited, I need to try and protect myself a little bit here. Here's what Holgerson says. He says, quote, "We better be doing things institutionally to give us a chance. That's real. I know what football needs to look like, and we're going to continue to improve it, continue to make progress when it comes to the on-the-field product. But institutionally, we've got a lot of work to do." Holgerson even pulled off a really expert move here. He got asked a question about four-star wide receiver Michael Harrison-Pilot, and he pivots that into an answer once again about the facilities and commitment that they need to be competitive in this league. He says, quote, "A lot of things need to happen if we're going to be able to keep kids like him here. In this world that we live in, just because you won a recruiting battle doesn't mean it's over. You've got to now make their life good at the University of Houston if you want to be able to keep guys of that caliber." And so I can understand some Houston fans looking at this and being like, man, just let us enjoy this. Why do you have to rain on the parade? I don't know what the exact tenor has been and the reaction of Houston fans from this, but I can understand if you would have some of that. And it reminds me, as a K-State guy, you guys know that if you've been here on the channel for a while, I'll compare it to something K-State men's basketball coach Jerome Tang did earlier this year. Off to a great start. Everybody's really happy, really excited. Top 15 basketball team. They're about to host Kansas. And in the days leading up to the game, he goes into a press conference and says, hey, we as a K-State community let Kansas live rent-free in our heads too often. And he's been very critical of students chanting FKU at games and was certainly bringing up that as well with those comments. And I thought my initial reaction to that was kind of like, look, I get it, but can you just let us enjoy this start to the season and this big game coming up and the excitement surrounding that? But then they win the game. He makes the point again after they didn't do the chant, and I kind of realized, like, okay, he was taking advantage of a time where all eyes were on him. Everybody's listening to what he's saying because there's a lot of excitement and he's winning and all that. That's when you can have the greatest impact. And I get it. I get what he was trying to say. And I'm fully on board, by the way. It worked. It worked brilliantly. And I think Dana Holgorsen here, it's like, this is the time to have that message resonate. You're not in the middle of a season. You're not after, like, if you start 2-4 and then you start talking about this, nobody's going to listen as much. They'll say, quit making excuses, man. Go win games. Right now, everybody's excited. They're watching your press conference because it was an exciting day for the program. This is the time to do it. This is the time to try and let that sink in for everybody if you are Holgerson. So I think it's a pretty smart strategy ultimately by him to do that right now. And he has data to back this up, by the way. Here's one thing referenced in the article from Football Scoop. It says, according to the Knight Newhouse College Athletics database, Houston was a distant last in fundraising in 2021. Below is the list of the Big 12 public institutions plus the two fellow AAC newcomers. Kansas was number 1 in the league at just under $22 million. Oklahoma State was over 21, Iowa State 17, Tech 16, West Virginia 15, K-State 14. Cincy was at 10, UCF at 7.7, and Houston at 3.8. So that's quite the gap, almost $22 million for tops in the conference, Houston at 3.8. So Holgerson says, now we need everybody to kind of put their money where their mouth is. We've been waiting for this for a long time, so now's the time to step up. What does stepping up look like? It can be as simple as getting your butts in the seat, be as simple as season tickets, be as simple as Cougar Pride hopping on board. There's just so many things that need to be done. I don't think people realize what other people have and what we need. I'm not going to be shy when I say that because I've been at 3 of those institutions and I know what they have and how much work they put in over the last 3 decades. We've got some catching up to do. Holgerson is right. He's a guy that has not only been in this league, he was the head coach at West Virginia. When he was at West Virginia, I mean, he had some teams that competed near the top of the league, right? So Dana Holgorsen knows what it takes. He knows what it is supposed to look like and what it has to look like if you want to compete on that level. And he also knows what things looked like last year when he went up against a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team in Kansas in his own home stadium. Don't blame him for looking at that and being like, you guys better be ready. Like, if we're going to do this, we really need to do this. And Holgerson did acknowledge, and I think everybody acknowledges, Houston has been taking strides in that direction, but you can't stop. This can't be a stop and rest on your laurels situation. It's got to continue to push forward. Final closing quote here from Holgerson to end on. He says, although I'm very proud of what the university has built to this point, it's been first-class, quality stuff, but the day-to-day, it ain't close. The day-to-day of what we're dealing with right now is not close to what everybody else has. So we shall see. We shall see how much that message resonates with Houston and where they're going to go and what that means for Houston's first year in the league. Honestly, if I were a Houston fan, I'd be kind of like, all right, Dana, how are we going to do this here in the first year in the league? We'll see. It'll be very interesting to monitor what goes on there with a former Big 12 head coach now coming back into the conference as the head coach of the Houston Cougars. Once again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and click that bell so you make sure to know when it is that I'm going live, which happens twice a week, and then dropping content like this. Please spread the word about the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz. Support the channel on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. And take care. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for being here.